it's recording, and yeah, I'll just get rid of that screen. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. Okay, I've just got some more people joining us. Welcome to this webinar, Find Apprenticeship Solutions Within the Earliest Education Sector. My name is Femi Yusoof, and I just want to say on behalf of Smart Training Prevista, thank you for all of you for attending. Also, I want to thank all our specially invited guest speakers. We've got Joseph McCann, CEO of Teach Now. We've got Valentina, who's going to be talking about her experience of obviously completing an apprenticeship. She also works in the sector as well. She'll talk briefly about her experience. And also we got Bianca as well, who's got considerable amount of experience, is also an early years education consultant, also a founder of Blossom Education. So she will explain more as well. And so, yes, I just want to say briefly the format for today. So we've already said we're recording this session. We have an hour and a half. There's a lot to pack in. I also wanted to thank all our Prevista staff. We've got Susan, I can see Zoe, Tracy, Julie Norton, Hannah from marketing, Darren. Everyone's here, and we will have people joining us as well. This is for the benefit of all our stakeholders, including employers, learners, and staff as well who work in the apprenticeship space. We are increasingly looking to engage with our employers and our stakeholders, especially during these very challenging times. We're going through sort of a cost of living crisis, train strikes, and above average inflation. So there's a lot of challenges right now for the sector, and obviously wider society as well. I think one thing we've learned from the pandemic is we certainly can't do things in isolation. Today's all about trying to look for solutions, finding solutions, and we've got an expert panel, if I may say so, of invited guests, and obviously well-resourced and knowledgeable staff who can support any of our employers here today. So I'm not going to delay any further. I mean, basically, the format is we've split the session into two parts. So we've got our guest speakers going first. So I will introduce Valentina shortly, and then we'll have Joseph, and then we'll have Bianca, who will talk about her experience in business and her ideas and solutions. And once that, we're looking at an hour for all our speakers. Our speakers are free to stay at the end once they finish, because we're looking to wrap the first part by 1 o'clock, wrap up the first part by 1 o'clock. But obviously you're free to stay if you want to. But if you have to leave, that's fine. And then we'll have a second part, which is where we'll have our Prevista staff. We've got speakers from the company, Susan and Julie Norton, as well as Tracy, who prepared some slides as well, which they'll present and talk about. And also we've got some very important updates as well we'd like to share with our employees and our stakeholders as well. So actually at this point, I'm going to bring up the slide, which is the most important thing. And hopefully you can all see this. And I'll put this into slideshow mode. So again, just by nod of head or thumbs up or put a message in the box. Can you all see this clearly? Okay, that's a nod of a head. Everyone's nodding. Yes. Fantastic. Thank you, Joseph. I can see everyone saying yes, they can. So that's obviously the webinar. The webinar is about finding apprenticeship solutions within the earliest education sector. We have 3 guest speakers who I'm going to call upon very shortly. They'll each have 10 to 15 minutes. We'll take questions at the end of each, or as appropriate, we could leave the questions towards the end, but we'll take it as we go along. So this has been recorded, as I said, and we'll share this with our stakeholders at appropriate time. So I'll actually move quickly onto the agenda. So I've sort of rattled through the agenda already. So done the welcome, the brief introductions. And so I would like to call on our first speaker, and that is Valentina Grisner. Valentina is someone who's completed a program with us at Prevista, and she's got a really good amount of experience. She's been through the process. She knows what it's like. And so we're very delighted to have her. And she is working in the sector as well. So she knows the pain and the pressures and the challenges, and also all the opportunities as well. So we're delighted to have Valentina. And so I would like to invite Valentina. Welcome to the stage.
Thank you, Femi. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Valentina, and I work in resourcing and operations at Zen Educate. purely focusing on finding exceptional early years practitioners for nurseries. I'm also the deputy designated safeguarding lead at the company. I always wanted to pursue a career in early years education. I did apprenticeships in several nurseries across Hungary, where I'm originally from. Then I moved to the UK 8 years ago. I was really eager to learn the differences in nurseries, nursery settings between Hungary and England. It's very different. So I started with volunteer work in nurseries whilst working as an au pair. I read the EYFS on my first week in here in England, which I found very different compared to the early years education in Hungary in terms of age groups, ratios, and everything is just really different. The age groups are basically 3 to 6, and children start school from age 6. I was nannying whilst doing volunteer jobs in nurseries to gain more experience in the sector, and meanwhile completed several trainings such as McCann, safeguarding, special educational needs teaching assistant course. I also did a level 4 in postnatal and infant care, and a child psychology course, and also a child nutrition diploma, before I took on a full-time job at a Montessori nursery as an unqualified nursery nurse. That's where I did my AMI Montessori course. Then when my manager told me about an opportunity to gain a level 3 qualification in childcare with Prevista, now smart training, I basically jumped on the opportunity straight away. My enrollment was very, very simple and straightforward. I had an assessor assigned to me on my first week, who regularly checked in with me and visited at the nursery setting. And she was my go-to person. We always went through each module, which was really helpful. She came to visit me at nursery to do this, so then giving me enough time to do my assignments, because of course working full-time and studying at the same time, it's not always easy. I was doing my course online, and my assessor carried out regular observations and witness testimonies as well, and always provided support and guidance when needed. I basically answered all my questions I had as well. And as I said, I was doing the course online, but I also had the opportunity to go into Kingston University a few Saturdays for study days, which was great. When I finished my course, I got an acting room leader opportunity at another nursery. And then I got promoted to room leader after a month. Then 2 months later, I got a further promotion to be a deputy nursery manager. So I was working at this role for a year. And a year later, I got promoted further as senior directress, which sounds very fancy. It's kind of like between a deputy manager and the nursery manager. So I would say like an acting nursery manager, which I really enjoyed. But I decided to further develop my career in early years education and decided to work kind of behind the scenes. That's how I am where I am now. I am also currently working on a 3-piece series for an early years blog and writing an article series on how to tackle the recruitment crisis, which we all know it is really, really challenging, and it's never been this hard in the sector. The first part was published last month. Basically, it's giving advice for nursery managers when it comes to finding new candidates and how to utilize them. The second part will be published in the next few weeks probably, and it is about giving tips for practitioners on what to look in a nursery setting when they are on a job hunt. And the third one will be for apprentices, to basically what to look in a setting to train as an apprentice, and in terms of mentoring and support through the studies. As we all know, there's no one size fit for all advice to tackle this recruitment crisis. And I personally come across these challenges every day, and I speak to exceptional practitioners, and they just want to move on from early years. They may want to stay within the education sector, but they're looking at working in a primary school, for example, as a opportunity for progression, even though we do offer, and I'm sure lots of nurseries do, opportunities for progression to become a senior practitioner, a room leader, a deputy manager. But I think they just find it really appealing, working like kind of shorter hours, working term time only. But I found that most nurseries actually offer this for the right practitioner to give them some sort of flexibility. So yeah, it's been a challenge, but I am really enjoying what I'm doing now, and I really enjoyed the last 10 years in education. So that's what I always wanted to do. And yeah, so that's how I ended up where I am now.
Thank you so much, Valentina. That was amazing. I mean, it's quite obvious listening to you that you're passionate about this sector. And I think that is one thing we all need, practitioners and individuals who are passionate about this industry, because if it's going to get back to where it should be or where it deserves to be, then it needs people like you involved. So thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. I took down lots of notes. I was scribbling down lots of notes behind the scenes. But I don't know if anyone's got any questions for Valentina before we move on to Joseph. I have got one question, Valentina.
Okay.
Yeah, the question that I had was, I mean, you talked about obviously your experience, and I didn't realize you did yours online, because obviously yours was before the pandemic, right? You
Correct.
did before the pandemic. So what advice would you give to an apprentice or a learner within a nursery setting right now who's doing their apprenticeship, who's finding it really hard? Like you said, you talked about the struggle around, I actually think sometimes it can be harder than doing a degree. I mean, I've come from working in universities for the last 7-8 years. And yes, getting a degree is tough, but most students at uni are mostly full-time. But when you're doing an apprenticeship, you've got both to manage. So what advice would you give to those apprentices who are finding it really tough right now?
No, absolutely. Yes, as I said, it's not easy, especially when you're juggling a full-time job and studying. But yes, passion is really important, and to know that you want to pursue your career in early years, and this is what you want to do. So I think it's a lot easier when your heart is in it. I know it sounds a bit cliche, but also to find a nursery setting that is really supportive. And because of maintaining ratios, it might not be possible to have some sort of time out during the day or during the week to do assignments. So when I was a deputy nursery manager, we always tried to do that, to give apprentices kind of a study day, or even just like a half day, for example, 1 or 2 afternoons a week, because afternoons tend to be a little bit quieter. But I try to just manage my time as much as I can and use the evenings or weekend. But I think it's really important, and you learn so much on the job. And if you have a really supportive environment and supportive senior leadership team, they will help you lots with the policies and any questions you may have, and with the observations as well. So most of it can be completed, maybe not the assignment part, but observations definitely can be completed during your working day. And we had quite a few practitioners studying towards their level 2 or level 3, and I think it's really important that they trust their managers, so they can go to them and find a person that can mentor them as well. So it can be just a senior practitioner or a room leader or anyone within the team, but someone they can trust and ask their questions. Ideally, someone who also studied towards their level 3, so they can share their experiences with.
So, which is why we invited you to speak, because that experience at a coalface of actually having done an apprenticeship, and not fairly recent as well, I think it couldn't, buy that. So I mean, it's just priceless experience and info that you've been able to share with us today. So thank you so much. I'm sure it won't be the last we speak, but we're grateful for your time. So yeah, thank you so much. And like I said, if you want to stay, to the rest and listen, and feel free to. So I am going to call on our next speaker.
Thank you, Femi. Thanks, everyone. I'm definitely staying. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Valentina. So I'm going to call on Joseph. Joseph actually is someone I've known for quite a bit. I've actually known the organization Teach Now for over a year. And Joseph is the CEO of one of the largest recruitment or teaching recruitment agencies in London, particularly in North London. And we're doing some work with Teach Now as well. But I'm going to let Joseph really speak and really tell you about his organization and what they're doing to support the industry. So thank you, Joseph. I'll open the floor to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Brilliant, Valentina. What a lovely way to share your experiences and your passion for early years. I'm equally as passionate about recruitment and solutions. It's been my lifetime's work. I've been doing it since I was 19 years old. I don't know nothing else. All my friends are head teachers. Everyone I know is within education establishments. And I've thoroughly enjoyed meeting people such as Femi and just building relationships. I'd like to sort of share my insights into the current climate, which you touched on, Valentina, and just give you an overview. Got a few slides to share. So my name's Joseph, CEO of Teach Now. We're based in Ashmole Primary School in North London. I sit on recruitment and retention committee for Barnet Local Authority. I help steer them recruit over 200 newly qualified teachers. Looking at working with Prevista for the Apprenticeship levy. I've also do international recruitment. I wear lots of hats. I get involved in lots of different recruitment avenues because there is such a desperate need for quality and quantity at the moment. So, but yeah, there's a few feathers to my hat there. I'm not going to list them all because it's about the presentation and not me today. Next slide, please.
Okay. All right.
Thank you. So what I've put together here, guys, is, what do we already know as an industry? There's a huge shortage of early years teachers, early years teaching assistants, and even more so lately, early years SEN specialists. We are speaking to head teachers, we're speaking to local authorities, we're speaking to industry leaders and how we can support, not just for now, but over the next 3, 5, 10 years, on how we're going to support with making sure that we expose the classroom to the local community, give people the opportunity to learn about education, and try and get more people to sign up to become TAs and hopefully school teachers. And then they're the next leaders of the future, who want to open their nurseries or lead early years settings. So I think it's a very important piece of work that we need to do collectively. There's a national shortage of early years teachers that are joining the profession. I think there's only a handful of universities nationally that actually offer an early years additional qualification alongside the primary school qualification. So we're already seeing a shortage there. We've experienced COVID, we've experienced Brexit. The national tutoring programme has also taken a number of teachers away from the profession, people that want to work from home, tutor online, etc. We've also lost our international space over the last few years due to COVID. So we've not got many Commonwealth teachers coming through Canada, New Zealand, Australia, Ireland, Northern Ireland, South Africa. So we are also, I've had a number of secondary schools getting really worried about the number of EHCP children that are coming through as well. So there's a lot of need, there's a lot of pressure, and there's not enough teachers or teaching assistants coming through, and we're going to see a big impact of that. Huge number of early years teachers have left the profession since 2020. I don't know, maybe some of the points I've just raised are part of that, but The Guardian just done a massive article just 2 months ago. 44% of teachers in England plan to quit within the next 5 years. You know, I think what Prevista are doing, I think the apprenticeship levy that the government are trying to push forward, you know, and experiences such as Valentina, who's the perfect person to have experienced this, and you know, she's got aspirations to commit to this industry for many years to come. I can see that, but also share her experiences and get others to come in. So I think it's very important what we're doing, and I think we need to get more groups together like this, Femi, really.
Absolutely.
Next slide, please.
Okay. Next one.
So I've sort of tried to break it down into a couple of parts here. You know, how do we solve this problem? There's, through tough times, we need to find innovation. You know, public and private need to work together. We need to think of innovative ways to give people within the local area an opportunity to learn about early years. What a great part of the school, you know, indoor curriculum, outdoor curriculum, learning through play, a number of adults working closely with parents, helping new parents, helping young mothers, helping with medical, helping with much more than just delivering a curriculum or getting a child ready for mainstream school. So I think the more people we can expose to it, the more people that would be willing to sort of sign up and learn more and do apprenticeships, things like that. So we have got a number of education establishments, and they're in a unique position. Other sectors, medical, social media, sports, film, you know, they work on all these areas already. I think education is just a little bit slower on this, and I think we're missing a trick. But I hope that with initiatives like this one, we can support that. So education establishments are in a unique position to open their doors to young adults who are not in education, not in employment, not in training, and these guys can become the Valentinas of the future. You know, we just got to give them. We've got to open these opportunities to these young adults. Next slide, please.
That's the next one.
Thank you. So our government is improving the quality and recognition, more importantly, of apprenticeship schemes. You know, I recognise all qualifications. I recognise everything that anyone's ever achieved, whether it's from the UK, from abroad. You know, that they're talented. They've gone through a cycle. They've completed something. I hope that over the next 5 years, we really start to think of an apprenticeship as a positive experience. It's an engaging one. It's earning and learning, working on the job. Employers are in the driving seat. The education sector needs to build long-term apprenticeship strategies. As I mentioned, medical, hospitality. Hospitality lost thousands of people during COVID. The airspace, we've noticed, you know, you can't guarantee your plane's going to take off at the minute. Everyone's left. Building, IT, media, sports. So these industries are jumping all over it. Many sectors are investing heavily into apprenticeship schemes like this. Okay, so it's something that we need to bring to our conscious minds and do more about. Next, please. So, you know, for schools and nurseries, settings, early years settings, you know, what's the traditional way of building a talent pool? So you could advertise, you could use the Times educational supplement, you could use other educational platforms, I don't know, newspapers, local billboards, I don't know. There's Schools Direct, you know, that's been used for many, many years now. Word of mouth, does the head know anyone? Do you know anyone? Have you got anyone at another school that's looking? Have you got a family member that would be good at this? You could become a training school. Not everyone's got the resources to be able to do that. You can use a service like Teach Now's, you know, use an agency. You could consider recruiting from abroad, international. And then there's many other methods that they use, but apart from, there's not that many if you break it down like that. So, as I've said, innovation. Teach Now has been trying to build partnerships with many providers over the years. I've really enjoyed working closely with Femi. I met him at one of the universities where I represent Barnet for the newly qualified teachers. They're very forward thinking. working with Prevista, you're in a unique position to look at innovative ways to meet a brand new talent pool. You know, I keep referring back to you, Valentina, but you've just done a great case study. Imagine if this opportunity wasn't presented to Valentina and 100 other Valentinas, well, how much could we have lost out on as a sector? We've got an opportunity to support the local community, and I've said it before, I like the saying, earn and learn. You know, it's hard to live and learn in London. So this is something that could really work for the apprentices. It could ease the pressures of recruitment and we're experiencing, and increase the number of teaching assistants that are joining our profession. It's quite simple, really, when you break it down. So I think, you know, there's no such thing as a level 1 teaching assistant. Let's build that. Let's build a cohort that we can nurture, develop, and grow into becoming teachers of the future. Yeah, let's get them their qualified teacher status 3 to 5 years down the road. What a story that would be. Okay. So let us remember, one book, one pen, one child, one teacher can change the world. Okay. That was one of the refugees, Malana, who said that quote. I think it's very powerful. And she's gone on to do great things here in the UK. So how important these young adults are, don't forget how far that goes, everyone, as well. Okay. So the importance of this. Coming towards the end now. So Teach Now, our traditional service, if you wanted to build a bridge with an experienced executive consultant that, you know, is trained by me. I've been doing this job 22 years now. They've got all the contacts, all the networks. Then you could advertise to over 20,000 candidates for the UK. We've got international database, short, long term. You've got free advertising in universities, free advertising in colleges. I'd love to come and visit your establishment. I'd like to see your setup. Show off to me, show me round. We've also got some very clever ways of recruitment. The Barnet Local Authority, it's an early career teacher strategy. It's exclusive to Teach Now. We meet 2,000 newly qualified teachers every year. We've got a Connect event where we bring the event to the teachers, to the schools. It's got 100% success rate. I'm very, very proud of that. And you're going to see more of that. I love to visit Canada, New Zealand, Australia, but because of airspace being closed, I've not been able to do that over the last couple of years, but we're going to restart that for 2023. Our schools miss having Commonwealth teachers here, different languages, different experiences, different history. We need to enrich their experiences of London life. And then colleges, and then the apprenticeship, of course, and then social media. Next one, please.
The next one for me. That's the one.
That's it. So I hope you understand the importance of what we're trying to achieve. You've got my vote, Femi, and if there's any support or advice that I can give to the team, my email's there. Feel free to get in touch. I've always got 20 minutes free for everyone. This is what I do as my lifetime's work, as I said at the start. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much for that, Joseph. I mean, I talked about passion earlier, and I have to say, in terms of when you look at people at the executive level, there isn't many more people as passionate as Joseph. I had the privilege of meeting him just before Christmas last year. I went down with a fellow member of staff, and you could just tell, Joseph is in this for the long term. So I want to thank you so much for that, Joseph. We're obviously looking to work and collaborate on many opportunities going forward. I just wondered if there's any questions from people on the call right now. I've also got one or two questions. The question I was going to ask, Joseph, I mean, you talked about the challenges, and obviously Valentina mentioned it as well. I think one of the things I've noticed, and I guess it's partly a follow-up or follow-on from the pandemic, but all those problems have been there for many, many years, and you can go back decades, really. The issue around mental health, and you talked about EHCPs and the increase of that. And would you say that's made the job more challenging, or
I think
exacerbated by?
Yeah, I think local authority are pulling away more and more and more. I've seen that over the last 20 years. I think schools are being relied upon more and more and more. The type of child that they are taking on is ever changing. The needs of that child is ever changing. It's becoming harder and harder and greater. But there's no other avenues where these children go. So I think schools are doing an exceptional job with the resources they've got available to them, personnel and finances. It is a tough job. I think it's always been like this. I think there's definitely something needs to be done. We're probably one of the lowest paid sectors globally in education. I think you get paid a lot more money in Australia, New Zealand and Canada. I think the support's better abroad. I think it just comes down to a good leader and a good environment. Like Valentina said it, if you've got someone who's passionate at the top, who works, sorry to swear, bloody hard, then you're gonna enjoy that process. If someone who's tired and stretched, who's finding it hard in leadership, you're going to see that throughout the environment. So
yeah,
we're trying our best to get more people in. We're trying the best to offer more well-being. I was on a call with Barnett and Recruitment and Retention Committee. We're going to look at avenues for simple things like being able to get a coffee a bit cheaper memberships for gyms, having a HR that you can call when you are having a tough time, you know, banking and other big sectors that are quite financially rich. They offer great methods of support for teachers and candidate and teaching assistants. So I think that's something we're going to look at, but it's one of the biggest workforces in the country, everyone. So it's going to always be hard to recruit and place with what, 28,000 schools and nurseries nationally. So yeah, is that a good one, Bianca? So yeah, I hope that helps.
No, absolutely, and I think you're right. I mean, it is huge in terms of the number of people that the sector employs. I mean, you just think about the governing bodies alone. I mean, I was a school governor for many years, and one of the things they used to tell us was that being a school governor, you're actually part of the largest volunteering group in the country. You know, so it's a huge industry. But I mean, the question, the second question I had actually also, which is relevant to what Valentina was saying, because obviously today is about finding solutions. And we know there are lots of acute problems in the sector. And I try to draw experiences and solutions from other sectors. I mean, there's someone I heard many years ago. He's a very successful entrepreneur. And he talked about, you know, looking at different sectors, how they've tackled their solutions. And, you know, and I draw back again, occasionally go back to the higher education sector. And one of the things I certainly see that they do very well over there, and I think sometimes is, and it's something we're trying to do here, and we're exploring this, Joseph, is this public and private partnership, this consortium idea where you come together. And I mean, what do you see? I mean, obviously we're working together, we're trying to set a few things up, but what do you see as, do you see that as one of the solutions in terms of trying to
definitely, definitely. I wish the last 20 years were made easier to me by the public services. There are barriers to entry, that are walls that are put up in front of me because I'm a private businessman, a private entrepreneur. I've done everything in my customer service to align myself with local authorities, with education establishments, and try and nurture a working partnership. It is very difficult, but I think in times of need, in times of difficulty, it does become a little bit easier. And I am able to speak to more senior people. They're more readily available to me since COVID. And I think they're asking individuals like myself with the experience I've got and the knowledge and the case study for my advice now. So it's encouraging, but it's not open door policy yet for me.
And obviously we'll love it to move a lot quicker than perhaps things are moving right now. And I guess it's a challenging one because we also want to get things done now. As human beings, we want solutions today. But I think we have to look at it as a long-term plan. But I guess it's the same time of trying to deal with the current situation. But working with people like you, Valentina and obviously Bianca, who you're going to hear from right now, would definitely help us a long way. Thank you so much, Joseph. We're obviously working together, and I'm sure we're going to be talking, again after this. Okay, thank you so much for that presentation. So I'm going to move on to our third and final guest speaker. So Bianca Pietosi, I'm not sure if I got that pronunciation. I was actually practicing that. Pietosi, yeah. I know it's Italian, so yeah. But thank you so much, Bianca. Bianca is a founder of a platform for the nursery sector, and loads of experience in this industry. She's also embarking on some interesting assignments and projects within the early years industry. She's a consultant to the sector. So I'm going to welcome her to take the floor now, and I'm just going to bring up her first slide. So Bianca, the floor is open to you.
Thank you. I mean, first of all, I'm thrilled to be a part of all this. So Femi, thank you. But just hearing the passion and how many challenges that everyone's going through, but just such a positive stance on it all. It really is why this sector is, still vibing today, is because of all of these passionate people that are working within it. And Valentina, I think your case study there was just spot on in terms of, the qualification level, but the buzz you've got, running through you to kind of stay in the sector and make a difference is fantastic to see. And Joseph, the insights into that recruitment piece, we all know that this is a hot topic. We've had, like you mentioned, we had The Guardian mention it. We've had Nursery World, we've had the NDNA mention it recently as well. They're all launching campaigns for this huge workforce issue. And so you being on the ground there for 20 years experience in this is fantastic to listen to and, share your insights. So thank you. I guess from my side of things here, I'll give you a bit of background into me without going into too much detail, and then we'll jump straight into the problem/solution side of this. My background is in early years education. I was an apprentice. I did do my training with Smart Training, so Prevista. I did my level 2, I did my level 3, and then I went on to my management, all within Prevista. So absolutely loved doing the course. For me, I came straight out of school and I wasn't the typical academic. I wanted to get to work, I wanted to earn money, I wanted to follow my passion. I'd babysat children for my parents since I was probably about 12 years old. So I knew what I wanted to do. I didn't follow that typical, you've got to go to college, you've got to go to university. And so for me, going into a workplace, but being able to actually do my qualifications, for me, that was a really fantastic way to learn while I was on the job. I loved it so much. I went through 3 courses with them over a 5 to 6 year period. So it was really beneficial, and it gave me the skills that I needed in order to start my career in early years. Since then, Femi mentioned in 2016, 2017, I was one of the founding partners of Blossom Educational. And the reason why that was a great sidestep for me was that instead of benefiting, one nursery site, which I was on, I was all of a sudden benefiting, thousands of children in many nursery sites by creating tech solutions. And so I've done that. And then most recently, in 2020, for me, it was the insights into COVID. We went into COVID in March. The earliest sector was absolutely screaming out. I think actually we were labelled the 4th emergency service, but without the funding and without, the press releases. And so we were almost kind of totally forgotten, but actually it was a huge workload. Mental health was at its worst for that a period of time as well. And we were actually asking our staff to be on the front line. They obviously did fantastically. But for me, that was the point that I thought, right, I want to go back. I want to go back to being hands-on with the children. I want to go back to being with early year settings. And so that's when I started a customer experience consultancy. Now I've done that since 2020. We work with nurseries, we work with startups in early years, products, services, tech solutions. And what we do is we basically go in and we help these businesses grow, build quality, and look at efficiencies. one of the other areas that I've been looking at, especially with Femi and Prevista, is actually coming directly back into childcare myself, so opening a childcare solution. So I've been doing that too. And again, like everyone's been saying on this call, we need something new. So that's what we've been working on as well. And I think for me in particular, Prevista, we've got the same vision on where this needs to go. So I'm going to touch on a bit more of that towards the end of the slides today, but that is a little introduction into me. So skipping again, because I'll go through this as well, but if we go straight into the problems here. So the topic today is workforce. You know, it's workforce. It's, yes, we know some core problems, but actually why are these happening and what are our suggested solutions here? Now, there are more problems than this. If it was just these problems, you know, fine, but there are more problems than this. But these are the two that for me are personal to me, and I can talk on experience, but also we've done recently some surveys with a staff research and development group, and some of the answers that came back will go into today. Some are very small things that we probably don't even think about, and others are huge. Some of these problems, like you can see, were heightened by the pandemic. So talented professionals leaving early years. We saw that, you know, you have university graduated teachers and early years professionals. You also have, you know, your level 3s, for example, that have spent a whole career getting to where they need to get to. COVID hits and they were made redundant, or they had to, you know, go part-time, or they were furloughed and they felt like they weren't they're needed within the setting. Well, now all of these, it happened all the time, and it was common for all nurseries, but it affected their recognition, it affected their pay, it affected their mental health, and it affected them thinking, is this the right career path for me? Is this really a stable career? And so we're now trying to build these people back up. What we've also seen with that point in time with COVID is these professionals went from being educators, being creative, coming into work and being passionate, to all of a sudden being on the front line where their health was at risk. They were putting their families at risk by being around potentially COVID every single day. And so now you've got a different kind of person thinking, should I be involved in this career path? And so this was really one of the main, so this was slightly happening before anyway, but COVID has pushed this over the edge. So we'll go into these problems in a bit more detail. The other side of things was pre-existing. This was overwhelming new management, from room-based to management positions. So this is, for example, your level 3 practitioner that has done their qualification in childcare, and now all of a sudden they get promoted to a managerial position. And what this brings is you are now in control of invoicing, finance, HR, mental well-being of all of your team, the whole operations, profitability of that nursery. And have you had any training on it? No. All you've done is you've done your level 3, which is amazing, but it's for education. It's for looking after daily operations, working with parents, working with children. So these management positions, amazing. They've got those promotions, fantastic practitioners, but a fantastic practitioner is not necessarily a fantastic manager. And so it's looking at that kind of case study there and the support around that. And that's something that I've experienced myself, going from room-based to a management position. So these are the two problems in particular I'll be going into in a bit more detail. And you'll hear me just go through stories that I've actually been involved in, but also just key stats, for example, that we've pulled out from our staff research and development group. So first of all, looking at talented professionals leaving early years, we heard that figure, 40% want to go in the next 5 years. I mean, that's nearly half the workforce. We're already understaffed right now. So it's terrifying, but it's also, right, what can we do to retain the staff that we've got, and what recruitment strategies can we then put in place to get more people into this sector? So when we asked this question to staff that we know within the sector across the UK, one of the main things that came up was they're underpaid. And a case study that we used of this is, say, for example, we have a manager, and a manager is on 5 days a week, 10 hours a day, and they're getting paid £30,000 a year. Now they have to be on site for those 10 hours a day, and they probably have to pay for childcare within that time frame as well. And so that is kind of the role that they're taking on there. And this person is probably going to be super passionate, because it's only passionate people that take on these high responsibility roles in early years. And so that's why they're there. They're there because they love what they do. They believe in what they do, and pay comes next. However, if that same person is then offered a position as a social media manager, for example, working 4 days a week at 8 hours a day for £30,000 a year, working from home where they don't have to pay for childcare. At some point, it comes down to that individual saying, how passionate am I? And that's the really sad thing, that actually they want to be in childcare, they want to be crafting the next generation, but it's coming down to, actually, I need to look after my kids, and I can't afford to pay for my own childcare to look after other people's children. And this is the real kind of dilemmas that they're coming into. And so all of a sudden, you see some of them taking other jobs, working part-time elsewhere, and working remotely. And so these are some of the things that we're starting to see. You've also got the fact it's an unrecognized profession. The amount of times I have been told that all I do is play with children, it is becoming overused. It's one of those things, you know, we are more than educators and childcare providers. We are crafting the next generation, the next society, your next entrepreneurs, your next business owners, your next politicians. These are big things that we're crafting, and the first 5 years is the most important. Again, just touching on Kate Middleton's fund, you know, it's amazing that we have a royal backing the first 5 years. And so things like this will change, but there is a piece on this that is recognizing what we are actually doing. And I think sometimes when we're in these nursery environments, we are so focused on the daily operations, making sure our FTs are out, making sure we've got this activity planning, that also we don't recognize how amazing the position that we are in is. And I think it's reinstalling that within all of our settings to ensure that these professionals that are coming through the door, especially the new ones that are coming in on these apprenticeships, they know how important their role is and what they're going to be doing. I mean, even parents, for example, I used to work with children that were under the age of 1, and parents do not want to leave their children with people they don't know. And, you know, it's that settling in piece as well. It's an important role to be able to settle a child in, soothe the parent, build that connection. And so it's just heightening the importance of this role. And the next point now with innovation, you know, I've been to so many nursery settings that, yes, they do amazing practices, but are we forward thinking? Are we changing things and questioning our practice and our benefits to staff and our routines? Are we questioning these things enough, or are we stuck in the we've always done it like that kind of approach? It's even things with tech solutions, for example, the amount of tech solutions that there are out there for a vast number of things, HR, recruitment, and nursery management. There's a lot of them that can actually take off the workload of staff members so that they can re-engage in what they want to be doing, which is developing children. So there's things like this as well that I think would help with the level of work they're having to do, the level of admin that they're having to do as well, and just really strip it back to make it become the job that they wanted to do originally. Statutory benefits and inflexible hours, these things as well, they go hand in hand. A lot of nursery providers we're looking at right now is they have the benefits, but the benefit packages are your 20 days holiday plus your 8 bank holidays. You know, it's statutory, it's across the board. There is nothing special about it. And a lot of these other more corporate companies, not in our sector, if we look at, you know, the marketing sector, like I mentioned, sales, for example, you've got all singing, all dancing benefits in multiple other companies that are, you know, 30 days holiday plus bank holidays, that have flexible working times, you know, maybe 4 days a week, maybe a half a day on a Friday, a team drinks on a Friday, things like that. These are all typical things. If you go into central London, for example, the culture is very different. Whether in the earlier sector, we're missing that part, we're missing the cultural aspect of all of us coming together, enjoying what we do, having those kind of weekly sessions on a Friday together, and really going above and beyond with what we can give our staff in order to retain them at our site. We're starting to see a change of this as well. There are a few of the larger groups that are bringing fantastic employment packages together. Never seen anything like it. You know, we've had one recently with an around the world trip if you stay there for 5 years. I mean, you know, things like that. It really kind of gets the staff member to want to reach 5 years. You know, 3 weeks off, multiple countries they can go to, but it's really going outside the box to think of, what do our staff want? I mean, even asking them, you know, even sending around kind of questionnaires, we've done it recently with, what do you want us to do? You know, we're listening. And your staff will often tell you. One of the answers that we had back the other day was, we don't want to wear a uniform. We would rather stay at the nursery if we didn't have to wear a uniform, something so simple like that. But actually it's about listening to what they want. The inflexible hours side of things, I think this is a huge one. I think this comes down to childcare practitioners with children, especially. So for example, can they do school hours so they can drop their own children off and they can pick them up? If we can, why can't we fiddle numbers like that? Do they have to work 5 days at 8 hours? Can we do 4 at 10 hours? If we can, why not? If it's a bit more admin, I think we need to be doing it right now. So it's about kind of having a look at how we can actually create these flexible solutions. I think Valentina mentioned it as well with your the apprenticeship side of things. There's lots of work that can actually be done on a one-to-one out of ratio. Now, not every nursery is able to do this, but within an hour a week, I'm sure we could give one person per nursery, per hour a week, whatever it may be, to just have some time to update their admin, to have some time without the children there to plan the next activities. And it just gives that kind of peace of mind that actually they're not just tied into that one room with that one group of children for 5 days a week, 10 hours a day. I remember, for example, even having to call up the manager to get cover so I could use the bathroom for 5 minutes. I mean, it's a crazy amount of swapping staff in and out. And so it's just finding ways in which that we can give that staff member back their professionalism without having to be on top of them, you know, not having to ask to go to the bathroom, things like that. The unheard side of things, I think we've covered it in, you know, quite a lot of detail there, but we are an unheard sector. You see it in the news, you see it with the funding crisis, and it is about joining the privatized side of things with the public side. That is a huge one. And I think the more we get involved in petitions, in speaking out, I think the more this sector is going to cause a storm and realize that, you know, we are crafting the next generation. It's that important. The other thing as well here goes into the benefit side of things as well. But when you are in a nursery, you get to level 3, and then you might get to level 3 at 21 years old. And then what? There isn't that kind of push from your managers or from the local authorities to say, do you know what, do your level 4, do your degree. Why don't you do a course in sales to learn how to do show arounds and look at conversion rates? You know, why don't you have a look at managing your social media and do a marketing course? There's loads of other things that they could be doing here, but there isn't that push to get them on to thinking differently. And so they often get to level 3 and think, oh, I've done it now, I'm 21 years old, I've done it. Okay, let's have a look at positions within the setting. And this is where you start getting, okay, you've got your senior, you've got your room leader, you've got your unit manager, and then you kind of go through the ranks, but actually you're still in the same setting. You're not really updating your actual personal skills. You're just gaining titles as you go through. And so it's a new way of thinking about actually forget the title, but have a look at what we're learning along the way. And this also comes down to interests. I met a staff member the other day, and qualified level 3, absolutely amazing at doing displays. They need to go on a creative course. They need to be designing the social media post for this nursery. It was incredible, but it was her interest to do that. So it wasn't promoted. And so it's almost having a look at those staff interests and really promoting them so that it's not just a career, it turns into their hobby. It turns into even more of their passion. And then we're utilizing every part of that staff member's knowledge. And the other one right at the bottom, this was something I went through myself. So this was me being a level 3 practitioner, and a good one if I say so myself, but should I have been promoted to management? Probably not at that time. I became the manager. I was given, like we said, HR, finance, responsibility for the profitability of that site. And I had 80 children that was under my care every single day, and, you know, 20 to 30 odd staff. I was not given the tools that I needed to manage that. And so I was given support by the local authority. They weren't there all the time. They came in once a month, and I felt I had a huge knowledge gap there. What I did at that time, I obviously went through my management with Prevista, which was a fantastic way to do it. But it was also partnered with a lot of on-site work at the nursery I did, you know, doing small courses on how to raise an invoice, doing small courses on how to work Excel. I'd never used an Excel spreadsheet before. And I think it's all of these basic skills that we are totally forgetting, that this nursery manager is now the CEO of a company. They are working across all functions, they're in every department, and we need to help them in that transition. They're responsible for X amount of children's lives every single day, staff members' well-being every single day. It is a huge transition, and I think there's not enough support and emphasis around that. And I think Prevista is part of that. There's a lot of work we've got to do internally with the nurseries, but Prevista provides those qualifications that help you through those stages, even with the sales side of things as well. You know, sales is a huge part of nurseries. And so it's kind of diversifying what the qualifications are within those earlier settings and treating them like any other business. Next slide, please. So this is the final slide, which is just why I've personally decided to go this way as well with Prevista. So I met Femi. We were talking more so with the consultancy side of things first of all, and then I let Femi in on the childcare solution that I'm going to be bringing out in the next couple of weeks. So keep your eyes peeled. But what we want to do within those nurseries is the first thing we do is identify our ideal staff member, and that could be different per setting. You know, say for example, a staff member for a forest school may not necessarily be the right staff member to head a prep school, but it's identifying who those staff members are and what kind of person you want. I think the key word here is passion. It doesn't matter, even if they're 17 years old and they've got a passion for childcare, can we invest in them? Do we want to invest in them and create that next generation of leaders? Absolutely, that's what we want. I would much rather have a 17-year-old staff member come in and want to do a course than someone who's been here but doesn't really want to be involved in the sector, you know, wants to kind of just potter through. So it's about character and defining that. Is looking internally. One of the things we do within my consultancy firm is we teach businesses to look internally first. So are there things that we could do internally to make a difference? So for example, reviewing all the employment packages. What do our contracts state? Can we offer flexible working? What would that look like? Can we offer benefits? What do they look like? Have we asked our staff, what do they want? And then reforming these. The recruitment and vetting. I mean, I think this is one of the key ones here. Do we need support in recruitment? You know, a post on Indeed right now is just not enough. We need to define who you are, what your USPs are, why we should work for you, partner with a recruitment partner, and, you know, get these people through the door. Make sure your vetting is spot on so that, you know, you're sourcing the right people. You're doing this a couple of times. You're getting your probation period sorted, your training sorted, your DBS checks, all of that kind of vetting is done in a really nice short period of time. You know, 3-month probation period, great. And then you've got this perfect member of staff that you can craft and get on these training sessions. Training opportunities, we will be partnering with Prevista to supply not just the early years qualifications from 2 to 3, for example, but going all the way through, right the way up as high as they need to, plus diversifying across your sales and things like that as well, your management. And then internally, we'll be putting training programs together that complement the work that Prevista do so that we can make it actually operational within the nursery sites. And your retention strategies. It's actually realizing the talent you've got on board and what it takes to keep them. It's not a signed contract. It takes so much more to keep good staff, and it's always innovating. It's always thinking. It's not even necessarily about the pay. It's about what they get out of being at your nursery. So these are all the things that we're going to be working on. And like I said, we feel that Prevista is our perfect partner to do this. Just to close, like I said, a CXC is a customer experience consultancy. We look at nursery groups, nursery settings, any early years businesses, and we really get into the detail of all of the internals so that we can help everybody grow, maintain quality, and especially with this recruitment side of things, is getting the right people in.
Fantastic. Oh my goodness. I don't know where to start. Thank you so much for that, Bianca. I think I've been saying all along with our previous speakers, we've got so much passion among our speakers. One thing I haven't mentioned is the experience. What our speakers bring to the table in terms of their knowledge and their experience in the industry. What they don't know about the sector is probably not worth knowing. There's a huge amount of knowledge and experience there, and that's obviously just been indicated by that presentation from Bianca. We're so grateful for that. For all our listeners, I'm sure we've taken everything. We've taken a lot from that. I've taken lots of notes there. So at this point, any questions from, because I've prepared at least a couple of questions as well, but anyone else wants to ask a question? And I let me just check the chat room because I think there might be some things going on. Okay, I've just seen a brilliant presentation that was from Bianca. Okay. Bianca, I was going to ask, and certainly feel free to ask your questions, and we're going to be moving on very shortly to the next part of this, but I think also this is an opportunity for any other questions you may have for the previous speakers as well. But this is for Bianca and probably anyone else actually from the panel. In terms of, you talked about forward thinking, and as one of your, one of the challenges facing the sector. And when you think about the pandemic, well, I think for me, when I follow the news, I'm probably a bit of a careers affairs junkie, or current affairs junkie. So I study and read all sorts of stuff. One of the biggest, as we all know, this is no secret, one of the biggest shifts in the world of work over the last couple of years is this working from home. And it's, whether you like it or not, there's a whole situation going on right now where people are trying this 4-day working thing. But how does this sector adapt to that? Because, it's a sector, like you sort of indicated, using old solutions to try and deal with old problems. But at the same time, trying to be devil's advocate, this is a sector that probably might find that hard to adapt to, because obviously their clientele is there, and the little ones, right? So how do they adapt to that sort of shift?
Absolutely. I think there is so much to this point as well. I think, first of all, a lot of this would come down to the original nursery's financial model. And I've visited multiple nurseries that don't have a financial model. It is just the forecast of what's kind of coming in and coming out. But I think refining the financial model to see per child how much you're earning, per staff how much you're spending, what is all the operational costs within that as well, and really actually having a look at what those kind of gaps are. So that's one of the first things I would always recommend a nursery to do, is go back to that model and play around with some figures so you can actually really see what is going to work. One of the examples I've got here is, say for example, if you've got a child that is 1 FTE, so full-time for 5 days, and you have one staff member that's obviously covering that child, for example, say it's 3 children, 1 staff member for your under 2s. Now say if that's happening, could we not have 2 staff members a job sharing? So it's kind of thinking outside the box with things like that. And obviously you've got to go back to the financial model with it, because you've got a national insurance, you've got PAYE to cover, pensions and things like that. So you really have to know your numbers. And I think not a lot of the nurseries right now are getting back to that kind of the number side of things, the core of it. But I would always start with the numbers and then work around different solutions on what you could do. Could you do, for example, 10 hours a day for 4 days a week instead of 5 days a week for your 8 hours? Could you, kind of work around things like that? Do your numbers change? So, for example, you could have 1 year whether actually you've got loads of under 2s and another year where you've got loads of over 3s. And so actually moving people around and constantly speaking to staff about what is working and what isn't, I think that's the key, but go back to the numbers first of all.
Yeah, always good to start with the numbers. Important, absolutely essential. I've got another question, and maybe while other people might be thinking of a question, but we're going to be wrapping up shortly, and then we'll maybe get one last sort of final word from our speakers before we move on to this next section. And also, as I said before, our speakers are welcome to stay for the next part, which will be our Prevista staff sharing some of their updates. But before they do, the question I have for Bianca and for any of our other speakers is on progression and personal development. I think this is an important one because, again, I think one of the big shifts, one of the big focuses for organizations as well as individuals is, going forward is around that progression. And one of the big challenges you mentioned, and I think everyone has mentioned it, is we have talented people leaving the sector. So, but you within a school, I'm trying to think of an example. You say you look at a local authority, for example. Joseph's got a huge amount of, he's probably the expert on local authorities. But you think of a local authority, they've got so many different facets to them. You've got finance, you've got HR, you've got IT, you've got logistics, all sorts of stuff. You name it, you've got it there, right? So how are the schools adapting again? And again, this is this forward thinking to look at, okay, because for example, Prevista, and I'm not sure how many of our employers know this, and as much as we put this information out there, but we do offer apprenticeships in business administration, we offer apprenticeships in management, and obviously we also do health and social care as well. So say, for example, because within, you mentioned someone who was, had these creative skills. So perhaps that's an area they want to go into. Within a nursery setting, it's the business essentially, right? So they could develop that person who might have an interest to go down that road. And if they capture that person earlier, they
Exactly
might
that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm
Exactly
probably doing
that.
You probably get
And
the
I had another example of it as well. I had a staff member who wanted to be a florist. And it was kind of like, right, okay, so are we saying that floristry is the primary here? Is it childcare? It's like, no, absolutely childcare. This is what I want to do. But I quite like being outdoors. I like that it's therapeutic. It's really good for my mental health. And I quite like the creation aspect. So how could we use that? And actually, it's almost like, right, well, we have a garden. Could we do an allotment? Could we use that skill? And we put them on a course. And, it then benefits the business. It ticks the box there. They're happy. They feel fulfilled. They're doing something they love as well, additionally. And it is all aligned to the business.
And it keeps the talent in the business.
May I just quickly jump in as well? Sorry.
No, please come in.
So I was, before this meeting, I was with 35 level 3 teaching assistants, and all ages, all different levels of backgrounds, religions, creeds, everything. And I was like trying to talk to them about their previous passions. And one of them was like, well, I'm a graphic designer from back home. I said, brilliant. I said, we need to bring that into the classroom. I said, you can help with displays. You could help maybe do some, I don't know, CD creation, some marketing, get the children doing things. I said, don't let all these secrets go. You need to tell us about it, and then we'll explore it with you. I said, head teachers will love that. It's not just about, sorry to say, it's not just about the curriculum or the child. It's also about the employee. How can we retain them? How can we make them want to come and work? How can they say, I done that? Like the garden, walking in passionately, walking past, saying, I done that. So yeah, it is about getting leaders to recognize individuals' other skill sets, dig a bit deeper, but then also giving them the opportunity to explore that. It's hard though, Bianca and Femi, we've got to train leaders to be able to open their eyes, look up. They've got school business, they've got finance, they've got problems, they've got HR. How can they look up at the moment? So yeah, it's just nice to hear someone else thinking that way.
No, I completely agree, Joseph. And also, you're at the cold face. You're at the front of the service in terms of seeing and hearing what's going on every day, and obviously Valentina as well, and obviously Bianca. So it's so interesting to see that we may even have some of the solutions staring at us, and it's just really thinking different. I think it's Steve Jobs once said, think different, and really looking, beyond and collaborating, working together. We talked about that a lot. I don't know at this point if there's any other question. If there is a question, please feel free to ask. I would like to open the floor again to all our speakers, give them maybe a minute just to share with us one last minute piece of wisdom or advice for our listeners and our employers and learners. Start with Valentina.
It's not a question. I just wanted to say that what a brilliant presentation, Bianca. I really enjoyed that, and I could not agree with you more, because my situation was quite similar, because I was basically fast-tracked to be a deputy manager. And I probably wasn't ready, because I feel like I had the skills, but I didn't have the training. And I suddenly had just so much to deal with, so much responsibilities, which I was not quite prepared. It was a setting with 80 children. I was managing a team of 25 people. And on my second week, my manager went on annual leave for 2 weeks, so I was left alone. And then Ofsted rocked up because we had a parental complaint, so I had to deal with all of that. And it's hard when you have to deal with everything, and HR and your team's well-being, parental partnerships, everything is invoicing. So it is just hard. So it's really important to have those kind of courses and trainings to prepare ourselves for this. But no, I completely agree with you. And in terms of benefits for staff, it is so important. It's just demonstrating that we care and demonstrating empathy and that we listen is just really crucial to know what they want. And as now I work in recruitment, I know that how important it is us to care and answer these questions, and not just like, just go down a route and they actually don't want to do it. Because now I'm liaising with nurseries on a daily basis, and they can see it as well, that the only solution that we can have is to maybe like a job share, which we do as well. We offer job share, or just term time only, like sort of like school hours, like 9 till 5, if that's what they want to do for the right candidates. We offer that, because I think that's the way forward. If we don't want everyone to leave early years behind. And I really loved what you said about the practitioner who wanted to be a florist. I think it's fantastic. And giving those tools and the opportunities to flourish and still be aligned with the business, I think it's just fantastic. Sorry, just one last thing. I mentioned during my presentation that I've been working on a 3-piece article series on tackling the recruitment crisis. So I just popped this in the chat, my first article. So if anyone's interested, you guys just can have a little read.
I've read it, I've seen it, Valentina, and as a fellow writer, I think it's wonderful writing, so thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Feel free to do that. So Joseph, do you want to give us one last piece of wisdom in this section of the presentation?
Yes, it took me 20 years to learn that I shouldn't be here for recruitment, I'm here for retention. So let's look after people that we've already got, and then hopefully that lowers the need for recruitment.
That's amazing. Thank you. It is about retention. I think the old days, I worked in recruitment for a while, and it used to be, just get people in. But the biggest challenge right now is keeping people. And it's across all the sectors you mentioned, Joseph, across all the sectors you mentioned, we all know there's no sector that's gone without being affected by this. Bianca, final word to you.
I mean, I guess for me, it's a really exciting time in the sector at the moment. I think, I've been in the sector for about 15 years, and it has always been the same. And over the last few years, regardless if COVID was the trigger point or not, we are seeing change. We are seeing huge change in how nurseries are being run, in how childcare is being reviewed by the government, by the public. And I think we're in a really important place to actually all start thinking differently, questioning everything that we've been doing in practice and recruitment, in how we look after people. I think that's the starting point. And I think we'll see drastic changes in the sector over the next 5 years. And I just think it's holding on to the passion. It's holding on to the passion in everything that we're doing and getting the right people on the journey with us. And I'm super grateful to meet everybody today and to be able to kind of have this discussion. And I think there should be more like this. There should be more of these conversations around these hot topics that are actually, problem solution focused, that we can kind of all pull our heads together, share insights, and together kind of move forward.
Absolutely, I completely agree, Bianca, and with everyone, all our speakers, that we do need to have more dialogue and more conversations, because I think when you bring the groups together, I certainly remember going out to meet an employer recently, and it was incredible. There was a sense that definitely more conversation needed to be had with employers. She echoed pretty much everything you've been saying, and more of this needs to happen, and we certainly want to do more. I think our next event, we'd like to do in person as well, have a mixture of different sort of formats. But once again, I'd like to say thank you to all our speakers, Valentina Grisner, Joseph McCann, and Bianca Pietosi. Thank you so much once again. I'm sure I speak on behalf of everyone at Prevista Smart Training. We will share this with all our stakeholders at an appropriate time. We will now move to the second section fairly swiftly now. So I'm going to call on our quality manager, Susan.
See you later.
See you later, Joseph. Thank you so much. I'll be in touch. Thank you. I'm going to call on Susan, our quality manager, who's going to talk about the quality side of the business, and obviously helping our employers with regards to apprenticeships. So we've got Susan.
Hello.
Hi,
Sorry,
Susan.
I was on mute.
That's all right. Okay, the floor is yours now.
Okay, thank you. So, so I'm just going to kind of talk about basically when we think about apprenticeship, apprenticeships are there to support employers. They are designed by employers for employers. It's something that is very different. An apprenticeship is very different to a college qualification, because with these, apprenticeships are there for the employer to lead on. So as a training provider, we are there to offer our qualifications to support them to build their teams within the company. And going back to what we've heard from our guest speakers, it's about looking after our employees and looking after our employees. So making sure that we're giving them the right training, the right support to progress within the early years sector. It's really important. Children are always going to be around. This is the one profession that can never be taken over by computers, because we're always going to need people to look after children. As Bianca said, we're looking after children that are the generation of the future, that are going to, change the world, that are going to make the world a better place. And we have that responsibility to support those people working with children. And so it's about employers really getting involved and leading on that apprenticeship. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. If you go to the next slide, Femi, that'd be great. So these are the responsibilities of the employer. And it's from every part of that apprenticeship. So it's from the starting point to when they're on programme, to then reaching gateway, and finally endpoint assessment. The employer being involved is absolutely key in that apprenticeship being successful. So by working with the employers, we are making sure that the apprentice gets the right opportunities, that they are, when they come to enroll on the course, that their job fits what the standards wants it to fit, so that actually they can achieve that apprenticeship while they're working, but they can experience what they're learning and very much be able to apply it into the job role that they have. It's really important that there is an agreement between the employer, the learner, and the training provider. So that's why it's, absolutely key that we're working with the employers. It's making sure that they understand what the apprenticeship involves, and how they can best support their employee during that time. And so making sure that all our compliance documentation is signed up, that that we have all the information that is required to make sure that it runs smoothly. Whilst the learner is on programme, we're looking at things like the employer making sure that they're providing opportunities for that learner to develop their skills, their knowledge, and their behaviours. So making sure that right at the beginning, that off the job opportunities are planned in for that learner. Making sure that they're encouraging the learner through all aspects of the apprenticeship, including maths and English and off the job. Those are absolutely key. The apprenticeship is not about just one qualification. It's about developing the employee as a whole. So making sure that their English and math skills are to a very good standard, because at the end of the day, like I say, we are working with children. We're the ones that are developing those children. So it's really important that we have really good skills to enable that to happen. So the employers need to support that, because actually that is better for them. An example is that our early years workers are writing a lot of reports about children. Those reports need to be so well written, because you don't want anybody coming back and saying, oh, they didn't understand that report. It's got to be, they've got to have really good English skills, and they've got to have really good math skills. So that's absolutely key. Throughout an apprenticeship, the learner has sorry, Femi, thank you. It has lots of opportunities to review their progress, and it's absolutely key that the employer is involved in that, because the employer is the person that is going to decide whether that learner is ready to move to gateway or endpoint assessment. So the employer needs to be involved in those reviews, and there needs to be a three-way discussion between the employer, the learner and the training provider, because that's how the learner will improve and grow. If you move on to the next slide, we'll go to gateway and endpoint assessment. So as I say, the learning, you know, is supported throughout their time on the apprenticeship with both their training provider and also the employer. And it's really important that the employer understands gateway and understands endpoint assessment, because right from the start, the employer needs to be supporting the learner to reach gateway in the time that has been agreed by all three parties. And so once we get to gateway, the employer is really in charge of how that happens and when that happens and how they support the learner. And once they get to gateway, then they've got to achieve the endpoint assessment. And the employer is in total control over that and needs to be helping the learner to prepare, making sure that the learner knows when it's happening, and also just working with them to make sure that they get through that endpoint assessment successfully. If we're all involved and all supporting, then it should be a smooth process for the learner, and they should achieve within the time frame. And that's what an employer wants. They don't want somebody that is not qualified for a long length of time. They want to get their staff fully qualified as quickly as possible within the time frame, because that benefits them as a company. So the employer has a lot of responsibilities, but it's really important that actually in all of this, there's positive relationships between the employer, the training provider and the learner. And that's whereby everybody being fully involved, hands-on, it will have a positive outcome for everybody.
Thank you so much. Is that the last slide? Yeah, it is the last slide. Thank you so much, Susan. I mean, I think one of the things we talked about a lot during the presentations earlier today is partnerships, and that's been reinforced or stated there by Susan's presentation. This is very much a partnership, and we talked about addressing issues around recruitment and retention. Getting a learner, an apprentice, to complete their apprenticeship, it does require partnership working. It does require collaboration. These qualities and traits are still perverse throughout the whole process, or traverse the whole process. So yeah, it's such a key thing that everyone's involved. Our employers, obviously our tutors and assessors who are engaged with the learners and the employers, and obviously staff in general. So yes, so thank you so much for that, Susan. I'm going to move swiftly because of time. We may well go beyond 1:30. I'm conscious that we are approaching, so we may have to keep our presentations very brief. So this is for our staff. The next presentation is from Julie Norton, who's our interim curriculum manager. Julie looks after traineeships. So this is younger people who are looking for some work experience. So I think, was Julie around? Julie?
I'm here, Femi.
Hi, Julie.
Hi.
Yeah. So
okay, so yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. I could feel the passion everybody has for this topic. They were amazing presentations. Thank you all so much. So I'm going to talk a little bit about functional skills. And as Femi requested, I will keep this nice and brief. So in terms of functional skills, obviously they are a compulsory element of an apprenticeship. Susan talked about gateway and endpoint assessment, and learners are unable to be entered for endpoint assessment until their functional skills are completed and passed. Just to make you aware, functional skills, English is 2 exams that are taken under exam conditions. So that is obviously a reading exam and a writing exam. And then we have an internally assessed speaking and listening assessment. Functional skills, maths, 2 exams completed at this one after the other at the same, the same time. Consists of 1 non-calculator exam, which is 40 minutes, and a calculator exam, which is 1 hour and 50 minutes. And those scores are obviously combined to give you the overall result. Could I go to the next slide, please, Femi?
Yeah.
So just a little bit about what we do at Prevista to support our learners and obviously your employees to get through their functional skills and achieve these. So right at the start, before the apprentice is actually signed up, they are encouraged, well, they are required to do an initial assessment using BKSB. And this is used to gauge their current level in English and maths. Following that, we ask that all learners complete a diagnostic assessment. So this diagnostic basically identifies areas that the learner is strong, areas of weakness or where they need to improve. And BKSB is incredibly smart and sets up a bespoke program of support. We also, within the company, do evening sessions with learners. So we have 3 evening sessions running Monday to Thursday from 6 till 9 p.m. Each session is an hour. These cover specific English and maths topics. And these are these can be accessed by learners to book themselves on using our online booking system. And obviously, if a manager feels a learner needs to, work on a specific area of their functional skills, even managers and assessors can also book these learners onto these sessions using this system. Now, obviously, we're aware that sometimes learners may have pre-existing additional support needs, things like dyslexia, dyscalculia, just to name a couple. And obviously, for those learners or for anybody who gets an incredibly low diagnostic assessment, we would look to provide, where possible, one-to-one support. And then obviously, the exams are delivered in numerous ways. You can have your exam delivered face-to-face with your assessor. The awarding body also does online remote invigilated exams. And we also offer testing days on a Saturday at our head office in North Road and in Crawley.
Mm.
So I guess, the question is, how can you as an employer support your employees? I guess the most important thing is to encourage employees not to be concerned if they do have an additional support need, or, they are concerned about their maths and English. It's all about transparency, and obviously we can use the information that we're given and all confidentially, but we will use that to obviously support and help our apprentices to achieve their English and maths. Also, things like Susan mentioned about writing reports. If your employee is sending you reports, there are errors in it, just make sure that you're correcting it and, making your employees aware of common spelling mistakes and punctuation errors. I know it's challenging and difficult right now in the sector, but if you have, a couple of hours in a week where one of your employees can do some work on BKSB, that's really useful. And just prompting them to use this, some learners come with barriers from previous experiences with English and maths. And, if you're encouraging your employees to use BKSB and revise, then obviously that's going to benefit them and in turn benefit you in the long run. And finally, of course, encourage employees to sign up for evening sessions. As I said, these can be accessed through our online booking system. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Julie. Yeah, functional skills is a key part of the process, and obviously it's all part of this initial assessment, and a part that a lot of our learners have to go through to finally get their apprenticeship. So we're going to move on to our next speaker, Tracey, who, Tracey, if you don't mind keeping it to within 5 minutes. So Tracey Shakeshaft is one of our employability tutors, plays a key role in supporting our learners through their journey. And so, yeah, so Tracey, if you're around, 5 minutes just to quickly go through what you do.
I'm here, sir.
Thank you very much. Yeah, talking about student responsibilities. Yeah.
Okay, so my name's Tracey Shakeshaft, and I have the pleasure of being an employability tutor. And so when obviously, oh, you've cut my slide. So basically, we have responsibilities, and so do the students. All I ask is that the students attend the activities, that are on time, and they commit fully to them, and be prepared for learning. Learners to inform me as a tutor in advance if they're unable to attend for any other reason, and I can always put in an extra additional session for them to catch up. Be ready to learn. This is a fantastic opportunity. Make sure their mobile phones are on silent during learning, and cameras should be on. I know we've had our cameras off today, but cameras should be on. Be respectful to all, so British values. Attend all sessions on their timetable. I know it was picked up, you know, the English, the maths, the whole package, and enjoy, learn and achieve. The journey starts here, so welcome aboard Prevista. My responsibility, so inducting onto the programme, then agreeing and designing an individual learning plan for each learner. This will include details of developmental objectives for each part of the programme, regular checks on students' welfare to ensure that they're working in a safe environment, and providing career education information, advice, guidance. So from the start, the middle and the end, so where, you know, through the time of the programme up until completion. Tutors will regularly discuss the next steps upon completion to aid learners in meeting their ambitions and objectives. So what do I do? So I ensure that there is very clear intent to differentiate and individualize each learner's journey. Before a learner will start with me, I will delve into their individual learning plan. And so I can see whether have they got a learning requirement? Is there a particular way that they like to be taught? What are their interests? What are their hobbies? And I try and incorporate that into the lessons to engage them. So do they like football? Do they like boxing? Do they like music? What course are they wishing to do? And then to contextualize Q&A for individual learners who are then able to relate and apply this on a personal as well as an academic level. We create opportunities to embed safeguarding, British values. We have ground rules at every session, as is health and safety, functional skills, English, essential digital skills, and also county lines. After the first lesson, I always send them a lovely smile award and praise them. And if they're not, obviously I'll contact their next of kin. Praise is key. A lot of learners, they've come through and they had a bad experience. So I was just trying to, this is for them. They signed up and I'm there to help them. So as an employability tutor, I hope they grow my trust. The more the employability knows about the learner and build their profile, then they can be more comfortable joining the lesson. Showing enthusiasm for teaching is very contagious and it keeps the students interested.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that.
Oh, sorry, I was whizzing through that. You said I had 5 minutes. I felt under pressure.
No, you did that, extremely well. I think you just really, emphasized obviously the important role that our tutors play, and we all know that our tutors play a very important role in supporting our learners. It is very much a tripartite sort of scenario where employers are working with the training provider working with the learner, and all three entities obviously collaborating to reach a common objective, which is for the learner to finish their apprenticeship. It's good for the employer. Obviously, they get a ratio, they get an experienced staff, and obviously it's good for the training provider. So it maintains that continued relationship, which is what we want to see. And it's been shared and mentioned earlier in earlier presentations. So very, very important that there is this collaboration and continuous working with the tutor. So I'm just going to go again, questions for our staff at this point. If there are any questions, please, there's an opportunity to ask. Don't know who else is. We've still got quite a lot of people still on the call. We are coming to the end. I notice it's just 4 minutes on 1:34, but we will be wrapping up very shortly. If there's any other questions, I'm just have a look at the chat room, see if there's any questions. Yeah, thank you for everyone. It's been really interesting. We've had a link shared by Valentina. So there's some really good comments here shared by people. Okay, since there's no questions, I'm going to move on just to share some brief updates. One of the things that ESFA is requesting from employers, well, from employers actually, and the training providers, is continuously really looking to improve the service that we offer our employers. So one of the ways we're trying to evidence that is through reviews and feedback. And we are obviously, like every organization, constantly working to improve our services. I mean, I was sharing this with a member of staff that this business is really all about customer service, and because there, you know, we are in a market where there are lots of organizations doing what we do, and it's interesting to see that we've also got 2 alumni on the panel today. And also they've come back because they've received great service and they've had a great experience. So that's what we want to see. But obviously it means we can't rest on our laurels and we have to keep working and improving. And one of the ways we, like I said, want to evidence this is through reviews and feedback. So we are asking our employers to complete the feedbacks. We are going to be engaged. We are going to be engaging with employers and our learners to update their, I mean, you can actually get this via your digital apprenticeship service system. So it's all, I mean, I think Susan talked about, and I think it's also been mentioned earlier, this is very much an employer-led program. Apprenticeships are very much employer-led. The power is in the employer's hand. So we are there to support, and the training provider is really there in a supportive role, as much as they do play a significant role in helping the learner to get over the line. So yes, we will encourage and request for our employers and stakeholders to share, obviously, hopefully positive stories about us online. So that's all going on to the DAS system. There's an interesting report webinar coming up on the 29th. So that's a week from now, on the 29th, and it's hosted by ESFA. I've been on 1 or 2 of their webinars, really, really interesting. But this one is from 12 to 1. Similar time to what we had here today, and the session will feature updates and information about the apprenticeship service regarding developments that the ESFA have over the coming months. And it's free of charge. You know, you just log on and register. It looks really, really interesting. If you are interested in and actually it's open to not just training providers, this is actually open to employers, learners, pretty much all stakeholders, anyone who works in the industry who wants to understand the apprenticeship service system. And so, yeah, it's available and I can send you a link. So just send me an email to femi@prevista.co.uk and I'll share that information with you. Okay, the next thing is really, we're getting towards the end. Just a few reminders about a lot of important, useful information that's online. We've got the apprenticeship service, sorry, apprenticeships.gov.uk, where you can find pretty much comprehensive information around what is an apprenticeship, talking about the benefits of hiring an apprentice, recruiting an apprentice. So that's all there on apprenticeships.gov.uk. And obviously on prevista.co.uk, we have under the skills and training menu, you will find lots of information about our various services and solutions that we offer our employers. And we talked about it earlier, particularly with regards to Bianca's presentation. And we were talking about the different types of solutions we can offer an employer, actually within the individual setting. So childcare, a childcare organization could access one of our other apprenticeships, for example, business administration, management, health and social care, perhaps maybe slightly different, more likely to be applicable to healthcare agencies and organizations, like care homes and so on. But so these all services and provisions are there. So we'll be, delighted to share this with you and to speak to you if this is of interest. And obviously traineeships, we've heard from a number of our staff today who support our traineeships and our trainees. And traineeships are very much a pre-apprenticeship program. So a lot of the people who finish their traineeships typically would move on, hopefully, to start an apprenticeship. It's one of the ways we're trying to get access to on-tap pool, maybe labour that perhaps hasn't looked at a particular sector. So traineeships are a great way to find new talent. So these services and provisions are all there available for our employers. And I think that brings us to the end. So it's coming up to 1:39, so we've gone 10 minutes above beyond that time. But I just want to say thank you so much. I will now stop the share. And it's fantastic to see everyone still here, you know, albeit, you know, with the cameras off, but it's absolutely fine because everyone's busy. But thank you so much for listening. I think it's been a fantastic session, listening to 3 amazing speakers and staff. I mean, the staff we have are considerable knowledge and experience in this industry, you know, so we are grateful to all of you. So thank you so much. As I said, we'll be sharing this with our stakeholders at an appropriate time. And we are hoping to do another or host another event, possibly before the end of the academic year, so before the end of July. We're hoping that one may be in person. So if there's any comments or suggestions, anyone wants to make a last minute thing, but otherwise, I would just like to wish everyone a wonderful afternoon and enjoy the sun. And thank you so much for attending this webinar. Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.